Hey guys, welcome back to Red Tool Woodshop. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this memorial flag display case. I've included some free plans over on our blog, and you can find the link to those in the description box below. I decided to make this flag display case out of sapele, and I first began by rough cutting each board a few inches oversized over at the miter saw. Next, I hopped over to the joiner to square up one face and one edge on all three boards. Over at the planer, I brought the boards down to a final thickness of 3/4 inch. Lastly, I moved over to the table saw and set my fence at 4 inches and then ripped everything down to final width. To cut the boards down to final length, I like to use my AutoScale miter sled. For the two shorter pieces of the triangle, I set my stop at 17 3/4 inch and cut both of them down to size. For the longer bottom piece, I set my stop at 25 1/8 and then cut that to size as well. Next step in the process is to cut the 45° and 22.5° angles for the triangle, and to do that I'm using the joinery sled. First, I set my blade to 45 degrees using this DeadNutz square. Then I slid the sacrificial fence on the joinery sled down just enough so it was sitting slightly above the table. After verifying that the table on the joinery sled was sitting nice and square to my table saw, I placed one of the shorter work pieces against the fence and then clamped it in place. To finish setting up for the cut, I loosened the red and black knobs and then slid the upper base to bring my workpiece closer to the blade. Then I tightened just the black knobs and turned the micro adjust to the right to dial in the position right where I need it. Now what I'm aiming for is to just cut a 45° angle on this without overcutting it, resulting in making my board any shorter, which would throw off the final fit of everything. Once I got it close, I went ahead and made my cut. As you can see, there's still a little bit of a flat left on the end of that miter, which is completely fine. I'd rather undershoot it on the first cut than overshoot it and ruin my workpiece. So I placed the workpiece back in the joinery sled and micro adjusted over just a hair and then made another cut. And here's the finished cut, a nice crispy miter. With everything all set up, I went ahead and cut the same 45° angle on the other shorter workpiece. Next, I needed to adjust my blade to 22.5° to make the other cuts. And to do that accurately, I'm using the bevel block to set my bevel gauge. This gives me an accurate reference to set my table saw blade to. After everything was all set up, I went ahead and made the 4 remaining cuts. I really like how the joinery sled makes a steep miter cut like this such an easy process. With all the miters cut, I quickly assembled everything with some blue tape to see how it all came together. Once I saw that it looked good, I placed the triangle on its back and then marked the 3 front edges with a star. Next, I placed that edge with the star against my router table fence and then ran just the bottom side through to add a small chamfer to give each piece a more decorative look. Next, I took those pieces back over to the table saw, squared up my blade, and then set the fence to 3.5 inches. Unfortunately, my camera died during this shot, but what I did was I ran each piece through with the chamfered edge facing away from the fence, and then cut off that edge on all 3 pieces to create the frame for the front of the case that'll keep the glass in place in a later step. After that, I marked the 3 edges that I just cut with a star. This edge is where I'll cut my first rabbet to house the glass. To cut the rabbet, I'm using one of our 1/8 inch flat top grooving saw blades with the height of the blade set at 3/8. After I dialed in my fence position with a scrap piece, I ran all 3 boards through, creating a rabbet that was inset just enough to accept the glass that I'm using for this project. Next, I made a 1/4 inch rabbet on the other edge. I adjusted the fence over and then ran each piece through until the rabbet was just deep enough to accept the 1/4 inch thick back panel. With the frame now cut to final size, I needed to figure out what size to cut the back panel to. And to do that, I first temporarily assembled the 2 short pieces with some blue tape and then a CSP clamping square to hold everything in place. Then I referenced the rabbet up against the 2 outside edges of my 1/4 inch plywood. Lastly, I put the longer bottom piece in position and marked the inside edge with a pencil. To account for that rabbet, I extended that line out an additional 3/8 of an inch using the setup block and my woodworking rule. After that, all that was left to do was to line up my track saw with the cut line and cut the panel to final size. Before moving on, I quickly did another dry assembly of the frame and then just checked to see that I cut the panel to the correct size and everything looked good. Next step was to cut the glass to size. I'm just using a sheet of 3 32nd inch thick glass that I picked up from my local home center. If you're not comfortable cutting glass, a lot of these places offer to do it for you if you want to go that route. To mark out where I need to make my cut, I just used the back piece that I just cut as a template, and I just traced it out with a Sharpie. To cut the glass, I'm using a basic glass cutting tool that you can find either online or probably at the same place that you get your glass from. I made sure to hold the template about an 1/8 inch off my cut line to account for the shoulder on the cutting tool, and then I made a cut in a single pass. Whenever you're cutting glass, you want to make sure to not make more than 1 pass, or you won't end up with a clean break. After making the cut, I aligned the cut line to the edge of my workbench, and then carefully applied pressure to break the glass, and that was it. I had a clean break. With all the parts all ready, I moved on to sanding each piece to 180 grit. Before gluing up the frame, I finished the inside face with some matte water-based polyurethane. After that was all dry, I glued up the frame using some Titebond 3 and some blue tape to hold everything in place. To make the finishing process easier, I also finished the front frame before final installation, because it'd be very difficult to finish that inside edge and not mess up the glass. Once the poly was dry, I glued up the front frame with some Starbond CA glue. This stuff provides pretty much an instant bond, allowing me to quickly assemble this frame and move on with my project. And to attach it to the case, I just used some Titebond 3, then lined everything up and added some clamps. Once that was dry, I sanded everything to 180 grit, and then I added a small chamfer using my Easy Edge corner plane. Next, I finished everything up for the last time with 2 coats of polyurethane. With everything all finished up, I placed the flag in the case and then set the back piece in as well. To attach it, I just used a countersink bit to pre-drill some holes, and then I drove in a few screws to hold it in place. And there you have it, a nice and simple memorial flag display case. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something along the way. If you're interested in learning more or picking up any of the tools that I used in this video, make sure to check out the links in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Red Tool Woodshop.